And a very warm welcome tonight, the first edition of at Hyde Park on Ada Derana 24 for 2022. And tonight we focus on two very important and intertwined subjects when talking about and considering the biggest challenges facing Sri Lanka in its post-pandemic recovery. Women and their contribution towards a more positive year for the country. These two subjects I thought we'll discuss at length as we talk about Sri Lanka's challenges and moving ahead in the new year. Sri Lanka has never faced a more challenging 18 months in its entire history, with the global pandemic having brought the country's economy to a near standstill. We can easily say that out of all the people affected by the downturn, job losses and economic hardships, it has been Sri Lanka's women who have borne the brunt of most of it. With that, we have with us tonight here at Hyde Park three of Sri Lanka's most accomplished women among the many unsung heroes of women out there who have beaten the odds to do their part in bringing the economy steadily closer to where it needs to be. So let me warmly welcome in our studios at Hyde Park, Kasturi Chellaraja Wilson, Executive Director of Hemas Holdings and also Group CEO for Hemas Holdings. Also joining us tonight, Shiromal Kure, Chairperson for Jetwing Hotels Private Limited, and Dr. Sulochana Sigera, Founder Chairperson of Women in Management. And all women panel tonight at Hyde Park to begin the new year. What better way to start the year? So what do we have for this year? We say Sri Lanka now or never, 2022. Is it really possible for us? I'll start off with Kasturi.
So hi Indeewari, and all the best for the new year to you. I'm glad it's an all-women panel, and I think women have this attitude of never say no, never say die, because by nature they need to find solutions. So my thing is we need to move forward. We need to figure out what we need to do right. And obviously if you do the right things and you're in the right mindset, knowing what we're trying to achieve, there is a way forward. And I come from a thing of acknowledging problems and then figuring out what we have to do. So it's not going to be, while it's a tough situation, I'm not going to say it's not going to be easy, but definitely there we can come out of it.
Shiroma?
Yeah, I tend to agree with her, and I want you as well and to my fellow panelists. I agree that we need to acknowledge, because there's no point glossing over things and pretending that there is no problem. We all know there is a problem in the country. I mean, for example, I can take an example from our company. When pandemic hit, we realized there was a huge problem. So we acknowledged it. We shared the problem with our people. And then we found solutions together. So I think we can get out of it. But to get out of it, first, we need to acknowledge, understand, explain it to the people, and find a joint solution. So we can definitely get out of it. But there are a couple of things we need to do before that.
Sulochana, do you share the same perspective?
Yes, Kas said we have to say accept, and she said we have to acknowledge. What I would say is accept, acknowledge, then don't look at the closed doors, look at the open doors. What we are doing is we are just blaming everyone. Take the responsibility, move forward.
She's always good at beautifully summing it up.
How they're connecting the dots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Kasturi, I thought I'd talk a little about, we're trying to look for that silver lining to come out of this situation. I think 2021 we've been talking about, we've not spoken of, but we've heard of many coming into our studios outside on the streets talking about why Sri Lanka can't do this or can't come out of this situation. Yes, this is difficult. We don't have sufficient forex reserves. Yes, we have a cost of living issue. But is it that bad that we cannot come out of this mess?
So look, the thing is, the facts remain. If you remove it to a company or a nucleus of a family, if they don't have enough reserves in the bank, if they their expense is more than the income they get. And they yet have that family. They love their family, but this is, you have to reset. At one point, you'll come down to no bank balance because you're spending more than you get. And they're not doing anything to rectify their lifestyle. Then you're going to have a problem. Versus you sit the head of the family sits the people together and tell them, look, this is a problem we've got, but we can come out of it if we do this, this and this. So one issue is, yes, in the short term I can't bring more revenue in because my revenue is less. I have to work on this and this. Puta meka karanna, we'll do that. But it's short term. Long term, sorry, we can do that. Short term, how can we curtail our expenditure? And what are the things we're doing wrong in the way we live that we need to rectify? And what's the impact? You'll have an impact to your lifestyle. You'll have an impact to the costs and stuff like that. You might look at alternatives, but you come out of it slowly. The same thing goes for a company, the same thing for the country. Reserves are low, yes, but it is systematically low for the last so many years. It's been dwindling, and with COVID it really accelerated because we spend more than we earn. Exports are lower than our imports. We consume so much. As a country, we subsidize most essentials. So fuel, we subsidize. It's the lowest in the region as a cost. The country pays out, I think, 40 rupees a litre or something like that, just to make sure you put fuel there. And petrol is driven by most of the rich people have the fancy cars. Why are we not giving market rates? So we subsidize for the wrong reason. So we are curtailing expenditure, and we are subsidizing when you don't have a bank balance. The solution for that has been, for the longest time, successive governments going in borrowing to pay debt. So you borrow to service, borrow to service. At this point, when you come to no reserves with COVID, you have to come back and reset. So if you take the family example back to the government, opposition, people, private sector, all of us have to, and government servants, all have to understand the problem, because end of the day, it's our country. We are Sri Lankans. We have kids. If we want to leave a country or economy for our kids to thrive in, we should forget petty things and saying this is wrong. We know these things can't be changed overnight. These are facts. So you need to work on it. So you need to consume less. You need to stop subsidies. I was glad that, yes, you see gas prices going up, but factually everything has to go up.
Just to interrupt, you say we need to, maybe cut down on these handouts and subsidies. But if you talk about the lowest tier in society, the underprivileged, does that work well for them?
No, it wouldn't. That's the reason they need to understand. They need to understand economically, by giving these subsidies, you can't sustain. So you unlock these inefficiencies. However, we all have to do things and be responsible for the next 2 years. How do we socially be right by them? So it may be that all of us contribute to the lower income people to make sure that they have their essentials in some way of, even if it's a handout or whatever, even the person who can afford has to do it. Socially, we have to do things what's right for them. But don't mix it through the economy. So I guess we can't afford to do it anymore.
I'd like to turn to Shiromal, talking about the tourism industry. You've been involved in this as a hotelier, in the industry. The worst hit industry, we all know this, double blows after the Easter Sunday attacks, and then the pandemic hits the industry, and this is also our lifeline. Part of the forex crisis is because we don't have remittances or revenue from the industry generated through the industry. At the same time, we see that the informal and the formal sector are affected as a result. But can we come out of this? December figures were quite positive, interesting to see that. But again, this pandemic doesn't seem to be ending.
I mean, first, to answer your question, you had asked earlier, you were asking Kasturi whether the problem has solutions. I think every problem has a solution. It's just that sometimes the solution may not be palatable to some people, but you can't help it. If you have a problem and you need to solve it, you need to be very rational about the whole thing and take a long-term view and give an answer to the problem rather than doing short-term. So going back to your question to me about the tourism industry, that's exactly what we did. We had a situation, we came out of the Easter bomb fairly well and quickly. But when pandemic hit, we knew by April that this is going to be long term and it is going to be like no other. So we took stock of our situation and we got hold of all our people and explained to them the situation. You know, this is it. We've never ever, even in the 30 years of war, ever had pay reductions. But first time in the history of our company, we did take, and they understood it when we explained to them. So similarly, I think anybody will understand. So we need to take the whole, I think we need to trust the people and explain to them the situation rather than glossing over it. And then we all took pay cuts. So people's lifestyles changed. Obviously, as she said, some people some sold their cars because then they had the money, and then some people started coming by bus to work rather than, so lifestyles will have to change, and then they had loans, and so we helped them also to restructure everything. So if you do that, and then you can quietly come out of it, and now we are coming out of it. As you said, December figures were good. I mean, nowhere near what we would have liked, but we had about 30%. I think Sri Lanka in the best year had about 250,000 coming in December. Last year we would have, in this December we would have had about 70, 80,000, so it's about a 30%. And if that 30% continues for the next 3 months, most companies can come out of this situation. And Sri Lankans also now started traveling because they also can't travel out. You know, a lot of people, I think about 500,000 Sri Lankans used to visit overseas. So now they are traveling inside the country, which is also very helpful. So we are looking at, our company is looking at breaking even ideally this year, which is great if we can do that. And then we have to build on it. So as she said, we have to take stock. We need to cut our cloth according to the, you know, what we have. And then we can get out of it. So this is a situation in the country is having, we can easily get out of it. But all of us have to take responsibility. The answer is not to leave the country and go in search of, you know, overseas jobs or anything like that. But I can understand that as well. But if we all stay, but if I think everybody is honest, I think our leaders should also not gloss over problems. They have to accept it, and they have to explain to the people, yes, there is a problem, and we should all take hits, take it into our heart and reset our lifestyles, and we will all understand. We have to do it. I mean, if companies were asked to pay a super tax, I don't see why the other people cannot. Everybody, it's everyone's responsibility, not just the companies that are making money. It is almost as if it's a crime to make money in this country. It should not be the case. People should be, you know, incentivized to make money so that everybody can come out of it. And also, if I can tell about the lower end, I think there's a program in Sri Lanka called Samurdhi. So we can use that mechanism to help the really underprivileged people, not just give a kind of a thing to everybody. Maybe everybody doesn't need it.
Just to add to Shiroma, you know, our country is unlike others. We have citizens who are very giving, right? Yeah. And they feed people, they give, right? And that's why I'm saying don't mess up this ecosystem just by trying to give subsidies. It's going to the wrong people. Electricity is subsidized, it's going to the wrong people. But you have to allow the economy to reset in the absolute balance of demand and supply in cost systems. And then build, yes, I acknowledge, Samurdhi, fine mechanism. Like you're telling companies to pay super tax, you can do it. But the problem is, what do you do next year? Because super tax is just another bit of some injection, right? Because the fundamentals are not changing. What do you do next year? So it's like, it's a crime to make money, then people don't make money. And where do you go from there? Yeah, so I guess even personally, people have gone through hardship. You've cut your, what do you call, dress according to the cloth. I have done it many times, and it's just mindset. Leave your ego aside and say, this went wrong, don't take it personally. Tell everybody, including media, has to say play a part, and then do the right thing.
Sulochana, if I may turn to you, do you agree as we turn to reset the economy to cut down on handouts, subsidies, or do we need an attitudinal change, or do we need both of this? What kind of approach do we need? Also, we keep saying apita bear, and Kasturi was saying apita karanda bear, attanam apita berida. Or can we do this? yes, I know you're very positive about this. I know all our ladies present here are very positive and positively contributing to the economy. But how do we do this? How do we approach it?
So Kasturi said, get your pay. You sit as a family and you decide. And Shiroma said, you pay. Some may sell the vehicle. But after you decide, and if parents are living a happy life or entertainment, the children will look at it and why, if parents are enjoying, why should not we? So same thing is happening in Sri Lanka, the attitude issue. They think that politicians are enjoying. The government servants are getting their salaries, whatever has happened. Then the private sector has to go through the taxes and super tax. Then these common people who need the help are the people who thinking that everyone is getting their portion, why not us? So if we want to change, we say change from the head. Not we are trying to change the small person, but we are not trying to change the head of the house, right? So I think politicians also need to do something different, and they should come out not on a political agenda. They should have a common agenda for the country. Then also the government servants, while they are doing their job, they should also understand the country is in a crisis, right? And the private sector who thinks that government servant is getting everything, but we need the government servants to get our business done, should be able to collaborate with the government servants and go forward. But whether it's a samurdhi or whether it's a charity, the Sri Lankan people should understand that they cannot depend on charity. Because if you look at women, 70% of women in Sri Lanka is not in the, they are not contributing to the economy. So why can't they contribute? And why are still we waiting for someone to help? That's the attitude. And also I think the attitude is we should understand it's not like giving something positively. It should come with your values. It should be given from the families that they're telling, it's okay to fail, but we have to get up and go. And also stop blaming, because just because you blame or just because you complain, no one is going to bring a solution to you. You have to find a solution. I think every one of us have our own problems, but what we see is we don't go and complain because we know that people look up for strong people and we can't complain. So we find our own solution. Same way, if others can look up and think that we have to find our solutions, then I think we will go forward. But I would again say, if the government sector and the politicians start changing, not for a political agenda, not for a union agenda, but for a country agenda, there will be a change. If you want to come out, we have come out of a lot of things. Tsunami came, we came out. Then 30 years war, we came out. Then the East attack, we came out. We came out. But again, we fight for the same thing, no? So it's not like, I think Sri Lanka must understand it's enough now. And
sorry to interrupt. Shouldn't this kind of attitudinal change be instilled at school level, at primary school level, through education? For decades we've been talking about this issue, whether it's policy inconsistency or the fact that we blame politicians and then people go and vote in the same kind of people they talk ill of. Again, we don't talk about the attitudinal and the socio-economic changes that we expect in the country. But shouldn't the education sector also play a role here? Shouldn't we bring about that change from the beginning of a child's education?
So I just came from a school. So what I see is they do have all these statements, visions and all that, which says you should be positive, you should have values. But are we looking for a educated child, or are we looking for a respectable child? Because we are looking for a child who has good grades. We are not looking for a child who is happy. So Sri Lanka has mixed up success and happiness. Many successful people may not be happy, but happy people are successful. So the change should come in school, not from children, from the teachers. If teachers change, if the parents change, children will change. So we are trying to change the children who has no say, but we are not trying to change the school system, that is teachers and the parents. If we change both of them, I think the children will be changing.
We're also talking about a generation who has lived blaming each other, teaching the upcoming generation. And here it is 2022. We're talking about Sri Lanka at crossroads, now or never. We'll see you after this short break at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24. Welcome back. Kasturi, I'd like to turn to you to talk a little about Sri Lanka's economic situation and the contribution by corporates. We spoke about changes made through the budget, certain budgetary proposals that were passed, and also how the corporate sector responded to it. But at the same time, just as you said, we can come out of this situation just like you work through a difficult situation a corporate faces. You're successfully looking at a group of companies. Yes, a company too faces the same challenges. What is the outlook for the corporate sector as we move ahead?
So I think every corporate has had its challenges in the last 18 months, be it domestic oriented or export oriented, because the pandemic was not a unique thing to us. Easter Sunday was unique to us. The war was unique to us. This was a global thing. So which meant that globally each country faced crisis in a different form or shape, health and economic, at different times and different moments, and how they handled it was different. So you saw global supply chains going out and consumption changing. So exporters also got affected, but they galvanized. So what did Sri Lanka do? Exporters or domestic manufacturing, they kind of pivoted, tried to find alternate methods. Our networks, distribution networks crashed, but I think Sri Lanka, quickly the corporates moved on. You found that they were resilient. They brought in, they managed their businesses, but most importantly, they managed to keep their workforce safe. It was not easy. If you look at the apparel sector, they have like tens of thousands of people in one location. And compared to the rest of the countries, we did it quite well. And you come out into this situation of lockdown and how do you navigate. So it's not easy. So what people should understand, and the responsibility corporates took, was that if we don't handle it properly, we are having thousands of employees who are going to struggle and be part of the problem. So we need to make sure we take people out of this problem and keep them in employment and make sure their home fires are burning, right? It was challenging. In the last 6 months, it was really worse for us people who are more domestic oriented, because access to foreign currency was tough. And it was a problem trying to, and first of all, sourcing was tough. Then you have access to foreign currency, then the rate you pay, bank, informal, all that. And then we in healthcare, we had pharmaceutical, and that's still under price control. And to open a LC, they typically say, open it with a 6 months or 180-day LC, and you're only having 2 months of inventory, and you're just having dollar liabilities and your price control, you can't pass through. So I guess it's really tough. So what I think government and regulators have to understand is corporates are part of the ecosystem. While yes, there is capital employed and there has to be return, which is part of the economic GDP growth of the country. It's going to be tougher, but they are willing to look at one thing they've learned in the last 2-3 years of all the different challenges the corporates have faced is to be resilient, to be agile, to find different solutions. Actually, and corporates have learned to collaborate with each other and government better. And because of that, we can face it. But they need to understand you have to enable the ecosystem, because eventually the domestic economy has to keep going. When that starts crumbling, the problem gets worse. So it's a tough situation. So for me, daily, even though we've managed it, navigated it, it's an every day, it's a different challenge. And most importantly, the challenge on keeping these employees going. For example, month of December, we didn't have vessels, we didn't have imports of some key raw materials because the vessels bypassed Colombo. And you had like out of stock for 3 weeks, and then when the raw material came, the employees were willing to work overnight shifts, double shifts, triple shifts, just to get the products out. And I'm glad we have employees who think that way without complaining, and they just wanted product going out, and they were like, it's okay, mona karanna oneda karanna. And it's amazing, but to keep that lot of people engaged. And now in the next 6 months, what's going to happen is even our people are going to face the inflationary impact. How do you support them when they have issues? And how do you make sure the company is also sustainable so that we could support them? It's a challenge. So you have to have your human side, but you also have a problem of keeping it going within so many moving challenges. It's not easy, but the thing is, if it's the attitude, if this has to be done to get the country up, Sri Lankan corporates would do it.
Before I turn to Sulochana, to Shiromal, Sulochana, we talk about brand Sri Lanka. We talk about, even if you talk about corporates, you talk about a brand identity. And when we turn to the tourism industry, there is Sri Lanka. We talk about a tagline, we talk about Sri Lanka as a destination. But brand Sri Lanka, we try to attract investors, foreign entrepreneurs to venture into Sri Lanka. But at the same time, we're complaining about why Sri Lanka cannot any longer go overseas and market Sri Lanka. I don't understand why this problem is, but probably because international rating agencies have been talking about Sri Lanka, bad decisions taken within the country. But how do you look at this? You've successfully brought together successful women to talk about problems and how we can overcome these problems through a positive approach. But in order to rectify this brand Sri Lanka crisis that we're talking about, how do we approach it?
I think I don't see a problem with branding. I see what we associate or what we want to promote is negativity. So actually we had the Maldives Awards recently, Kasturi was with me. And there, it's about not just having women in management in Maldives, it's about women in management. Sri Lanka is recognizing Maldivian women. And when Kasturi went and spoke as the panel of judge head, I was looking at her not as just a panel of judge. So Kasturi is a brand of Sri Lanka. And when women in management names come, it's a brand of Sri Lanka. So you can complain and sit here, or you can go and do beyond what is there. So I think what Sri Lanka needs to understand is we have a lot of positive things, but I don't see any of, even the private sector is doing their part of branding Sri Lanka. We wait for politicians. Politicians will brand their own branding for their campaigns. But as Sri Lankans, we should be branding. So women in management, when it went to Maldives, then it went to Canada, what I looked at is the Sri Lankans who were looking in Canada. Then 2 weeks ago, when I registered and got my registration for Women in Management USA, it's not that what others are thinking. We are talking about the brand because we have the most educated women in Sri Lanka. And they are leading the world. Why can't we bring those women and tell these are the products of Sri Lanka? These are our women. So we have a base to come out. Even tourism, I have not seen today tourism coming up a brand saying that Sri Lanka's positivity. Everyone has individual agendas. So we have to have a country agenda. Let the politician have their agenda. But as private sector, as country, cannot we come forward? And also I think Sri Lankans media, more than media, the international media put a lot of negativity. So we as on the social media, we share those than the positivity in Sri Lanka. So that there is a challenge even for Sri Lankan media to put the positivity out. And also we have so much of news, and we are more targeted on the news on the negativity than the positivity. But if you look at the globally whether Sri Lanka is a negative country, I would say no. Because I'm someone who always goes and talk about Sri Lanka. Yes, we do have problems. Every country has a problem. Every family has a problem. But if you focus on the problems, we will not see the blessings. During the COVID, I still think, I have been on the road, I still feel we are a blessed country. We are blessed. And why can't we speak about blessings? Why do we have to complain so much? The thing is, we have been taught, we have been brainwashed that negativity is the way to come forward. Complain and you get results. We have not taught appreciate and feel blessed so that you can move forward. I think that's the problem in Sri Lanka.
We are certainly happy Sri Lankans. Yes, Kasturi.
If I can add to her brand conversation. So yes, women in management has become a brand, and we actually, Shiromal and I are not part of it. We support it because that brand has a consistency. It stood for something. It's about finding these women, empowering them, supporting them, giving an ecosystem for them to be recognized, as well as supporting them to succeed, right? And then she has, over the last 10 odd years, she has brought it. When you go to Maldives, it's the same brand value. You're talking about the same thing. So there's consistency. You stand for something. So when you talk about FDI coming in, there is something Sri Lanka is offering to investors, either for Sri Lankan per consumption or a gateway to a region. But they need certain things which you stand for consistently throughout. Because it's not the only country to invest in. You have other countries which stand for certain things. You have to decide on that and be consistent in what you're offering for an investor. So I think about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when this whole foreign currency freeze came, we had investors, global investors who had invested in HEMAs who started selling off because they were scared that the dollars couldn't be taken out. So that is absolute inconsistency. So you need to step back and say, what are the things we will, whether this government changes or the other government comes in, we will offer as a country consistently for people to do business. And that brand should be, so it should be uniform. And if Sulo tells us to go and speak in UK, I don't have to think twice. I know what the brand stands for. And that power of that and the consistency and what it stands for helps it to grow beyond.
I think Shiromal would have something to add to this too, but at the same time, tourism industry. I think yesterday on the news, we had the Hoteliers Association talk about what the government needs to do in order to help financially and also restructure the debt component. What is your view here? Yes, hotels, the industry has faced a lot of challenges. From the government side, I wonder what their response will be. But at the same time, the banks, how supportive are they? Maybe you can share your thoughts on this.
You really put me in a spot. But yeah, so I do agree. It was a really unprecedented event. It's what they call a black swan event. You know, you can't really plan for such a thing. So most companies are in a bit of a pickle, but I still believe that a company should take care of their own problems, that they should also have some kind of reserve. But unfortunately, this has happened, and most companies do not have a proper plan, and they are in debt, and there is foreign currency debt, and so it's quite a complicated situation. But when you take it from the bank's point of view, banks also have depositors' money. It's not their money, it's customers' money, shareholders' money. So they can't just say, okay, I'm going to write off your loan, I'll give you a reduction. They can't. They also have another responsibility. So, so what the Hoteliers Association is asking, what the slight of people are asking, is to extend these concessions. Personally, I think it's a tough one because government, as you say, is also in a financial crisis. Banks are having a lot of NPAs, and they can't be asked to, you know, support in such a way. So if the banks are supporting, then the government will have to give them some relief, either a tax write-off or, you know, some kind of a thing. So it's a very complicated problem. But tourism, because it is helping so many people down, you know, over 3 million people. And as Sulochana said, we have such a beautiful country, you know. We are blessed in so many ways. And that is one thing we can easily showcase to the world and get people to come. They can then have other, you know, they may sometimes want to come back and invest. So tourism has to be supported. And it was a private sector driven industry. So some kind of means will have to be made, either go to an international funding agency and get some assistance, but the industry also should not expect handouts all the time, you know. And
since you mentioned about international funding agencies, I'd like to just ask this question. We've been talking about the IMF, whether Sri Lanka should go to the IMF or not. I'm sure you will have something to add to this. There is a divide on this question, that Sri Lanka should not. But successful women entrepreneurs, contributors to the economy, business women. What do you think Sri Lanka needs to do?
So
This is a general question to the entire panel.
So, well, I think one of the reasons why we don't want to go to the IMF is because they can put in tough sanctions. So that is not going well with the political agenda. I mean, you can't blame them. I guess if I was a political leader and I want to come back to power in a couple of years' time, I will also try to keep my voters happy so that they are going to vote me in. But I honestly don't see, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see any other way out of this current predicament but going to the IMF. But also I understand that's going to bring in a lot of hardships for all of us because they are going to stop lots of these handouts and stuff like that. But maybe that's something we should do. So perhaps we should use the IMF excuse, and the government should use that as an excuse and explain to the people that these need to be done because they have to be done. There's no way we can carry on like this, just borrowing money, giving more handouts, printing money and giving extra handouts. It's going to be a vicious circle. We are just going to be in this forever and ever. So somebody needs to take, just like this government took us out of the war, I think this government can take us out of this. This predicament we are in right now, but they need to take tough decisions. They need to take proper decisions, educated and wise decisions. Unpopular decisions. Yes, it doesn't matter.
So yeah, and I think the
IMF.
IMF is so honestly, I think why we keep saying we will have to do it is not for anything. It brings you a rigor of restructuring and monitoring. It will help us to be more disciplined. So it will discipline us in our expenditure. It will push us to increase our revenue on the fiscal aspect, right? I don't think they will, now I see the latest things during COVID, IMF has actually been not too things fussed about the handouts here because they allow you to manage your at the high level revenue and expenditure, but they will be very rigorous. And what does that bring to us? Our creditors have comfort when there is somebody to monitor. If we want to restructure, and we have to restructure our credit, it has to come, they will do that only if there is a comfort of somebody who is going to monitor our restructure plan, and that's where the role of IMF would also help us. So I don't think we as a country and the way the political system and the whole ecosystem works of popularity and stuff, you will not make a tough decision unless you're forced to do it and somebody else is monitoring you for that. So it's going to take a lot of appetite, a lot of willpower to do it, but again it has to be coming together, whether it's government or all politicians, government, opposition, private sector, government employees, including people who don't pay taxes, have to kind of say, look, we can't. And the people and the media plays a big part, because for a change, let's forget controversial and then say, this has to be done, let's work on it, and restart and say, we'll monitor our country this way. This is my part of this, this is your part. Otherwise, you can't. You have to restructure and you have to monitor our progress.
I think Sulochana too.
No, I agree, all of them, because end of the day, as she said, it's monitoring, and more than monitoring, it will be audited, right? And for some reason, I think everyone is scared of Sri Lankan auditing. Even the private sector, when auditors come, they are very scared. So that attitude is there. But I think Sri Lanka needs that, and Sri Lanka needs discipline from top to bottom. And also Sri Lanka need to start building themselves rather than depending on people. Exactly. I think that's as we are so dependable upon people. And when the tourism hit, we were dependent on tourism. Then we are blaming the pandemic rather than we are finding solutions. So I think IMF, whether it's good or bad, we have no other option. But then again, I would say, just because IMF, are we going to solve all our problems? No. But it will help the people to rethink about their lifestyle and also the attitudes and the dependency mindset. And young generation, I just want to touch that, who's living this country, I'm sure 90% of them has not worked in Sri Lanka. If they have worked, they wouldn't have lived. But they have all the right to live because they have to have a future. But then again, you can be successful in a successful country if you can be successful in the country which is just trying to survive, that's the most success. But they are young, they should be having a future. So they leave, but rather than blaming them for leaving, are we ready to make a place where they can stay and contribute? That is something we have to think. And also, especially for university students, you are getting the degree, don't just leave after the degree, at least work for 1 year for the country, then leave, because they have the right to leave. And they should be having a future.
That's certainly something, some food for thought. Turn around the situation. I think even corporates, you know, Kasturi, all of you must be quite excited to take up a challenging situation and turn around that situation in order to make a successful success out of that. Sulochana, again, I want to ask you, why women? I've always wanted to ask you this before we wrap up the conversation. Women in management, yes, you've brought from Kasturi to Shiromal to so many women who have made contributions. At the same time, spoken of unsung women heroes who make silent contributions at home, our mothers. They may not go to work, but they've contributed immensely in giving us the education we needed, whether there's financial support or not. But why women? Can't we not have women lead the reset and recovery of this nation?
We can, and women are the resilient leaders. The only issue is, are we women ready to support women? And also, because I see a lot of, we have all these shows, reality shows, and there are so much of talented young girls, but end of the program you get all the guys winning the talent shows. So we have to, women should stop looking for perfect women. We want to be perfect. We want everything to do it in a proper way. Stop being perfect. And also, women are the only solution for this economy to turn out. Women are the only solution, and they will turn out. Whether they are political leaders or non-political, women are leaders. They want to take the back seat. They hardly want to take. The mothers, they are the one who's actually putting these everything at home. But the fathers are the head of the house, right? Because that's how we were brought up. It's not that women are not leaders. They are leaders. They are the people who are leading their families and the economy and the corporate. So I think leadership has no gender. Leadership is how you face the situation. I always say leadership is all about situational leadership. And women are the best situational leadership. So women knows it. So if the country will turn up, when the women start looking at it in a positive way. First, we have to change the mother and the woman at home, then this country will change. And the voters are us, 56% voters are women. They can change this country.
Shiromal, I think you started very small in a little room-like office. Take us through that journey. What inspired you to make a success out of your dreams and your vision?
Yeah. So I was actually blessed because I come from a business family. So it was my dad and my grandfather. I mean, they had all started. So the infrastructure was there in Indeewari. It's just that the company that I started working, nobody had any interest in it actually. My dad wasn't really keen on it. So what actually inspired me was, I was an accountant. I'm an accountant by profession. And I was working in another company as an accountant. So when I joined the travel trade, and I remember going for a trade fair with my dad, and a very eminent businessman then looked at me and said, "You're a good accountant. Why the hell are you coming to this? You can't do this. This is a man's world." And that day I thought, let me try, you know, I am not. And so that kind of spurred me on. If somebody tells me you can't do something, I want to do it. I've got into many soups trying to do that also. But thankfully, this succeeded. So, so it was a long journey. I mean, I don't think we have time to tell, but I'm thankful to the team we had. And again, I said my dad, my brother, they were all there. So we were able to make this a success together. But it's tough. I know for women, I mean, I admire Kasturi, being a single mother, bringing up 2 children and doing all the other things that she's doing. To come up in a corporate is tough. So the fact that she has done it, it's amazing. And Sulo is another fabulous example of somebody who has been, somebody else would have been wallowing in that situation and not come out of it. Not only did she come out of it, she's bringing so many other women out of that, which is great, you know, which should inspire all women. And to answer, if I can just talk about the other problem about a woman, even at home, we will go to our mother if there's a problem, and a mother will always have a solution. She would have tucked away some money somewhere, or there is always a solution. So as she said, women are very strong. Women have empathy in them, and this situation requires a lot of empathy. Leaders must understand what the people are going through, and as she said, leaders must also lead by example. And you must show people. You can't be traveling, say, in a Mercedes-Benz and ask somebody else to walk. You can't be having 5-star entertainment and tell somebody do away with one meal. That's not on. So we have to have empathy, and we need to explain to people, and people will understand, and people will accept it. But wise decisions have to be made, and led by example.
I'm sure you made wise decisions, Kasturi, a single mother. Again, you've become the first CEO of a conglomerate in Sri Lanka. I have your profile here, the first female president of Sri Lanka Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industry, and again one of the 12 top women change makers, and the list goes on. You've truly inspired us all, but at the same time we talk about women at home who are probably in the same situation as you are, but who fear taking that first step forward, who do not thrive to live their dream, who do not break those barriers. As we talk about Sri Lanka, now or never, I think for women too, this is the moment.
Yeah, I think what Shiromal said is that women have, and Sulo said, women have this innate strength inside, right? I didn't start up wanting a career. I just wanted to play basketball, and I had a boss who pushed me into a career, but then I wanted to be a mom, right? And so when situations changed, I realized I had the strength in me, I had skills in me, and that was one way. And because my kids were the nucleus, I went into a career. There are so many women now. It's not like our generation. Women want careers. They want it. They just want an ecosystem to support. COVID is doing it now, but I was lucky and blessed. When I came into, before Hema's even, wherever I went, they were women friendly. They were family friendly. So I had flexi hours even then, 30 years ago. I had flexi hours 20 years ago at Hema's. They were gender blind. So when they pushed me into running IT, they didn't think that Kasturi is an accountant, why is she running the IT group? It was like, you have the capability of asking the right questions, pushing teams, getting the best out of teams, go in there. Put me into logistics, they were gender blind. So you need to be believing on the strength. Each one has a unique thing they bring to the table. I have surrounded myself with people who are better than me, but who have unique things which I don't have. And we should be comfortable with it. But see them, give them an environment where they can be flexibly work, bring in their best. And we can't be overly biased about that's not a raw job for a woman. And the other aspect is, I think we have this thing saying you have to be physically working and you have to control them in a hierarchy to see that there's output. Nowadays it doesn't work. COVID taught you that we have to trust people at home that they would be giving the output. You don't measure number of hours, you measure what they're delivering. And in that environment, women will thrive, because you put that setting and tell a woman you can contribute, we'll give you flexibility, bring out the best, they'll find a way to do it. They might be even working at 9 o'clock in the night to 2 o'clock, that's the time the kids sleep, but they'll do it. I've done it. I remember when my kids used to be sleeping, I'll go back into office and work at that time. But that's because we are grateful, we are happy. And one thing, big difference I see between women and men, we just want the outcome and we're happy about it. And after that, they go to the background and they want to move to the next thing. They don't want it. You might think that, like, when I'm put out in public and I wanted the recognition. No, I kind of shy away from it. But there are sometimes it's necessary just to be acknowledged and I appreciate it. But the thing is to accomplish the challenge, and you have the ability to seek out without an ego. If I don't have the skill, I'll say, Sulo, can you help me do this? And amazing networks, we leave the ego aside and seek out help. So they could, I guess everybody is resilient, and if you say 70% of our women are not working, that's the single biggest problem on economic productivity and active economic contribution. You need to get them out there. And amazing people, I mean, they are talented, and the willpower they bring to the table, it just amazes me.
I think we were supposed to wrap up the show 5 minutes ago, but I need to ask this question, just 1 minute. Psychological issues we face. Sulochana mentioned something very important. We are perceived as strong women, so we can't cry and complain. And again, I talk about women, those who are not in the limelight, who cry behind closed doors. And this COVID situation has brought upon them so much of psychological challenges. How do you overcome them? What do we do here? Because women are really facing this today more than ever. Very quickly, I think I have about a minute.
So I think women should have, first thing is they should trust in themselves, and also they should have a trusted friend. That trusted friend doesn't have to be a male. It can be a female, because women are scared to tell a problem to a lady thinking that it will, but have a trusted friend. And I think that's something women should start. I have seen during the COVID, I've been talking to so many women, they have a lot of issues, but they're scared to speak out. They are very scared of labeling them. So it's okay to cry, it's okay to fail, and it's okay. They should understand, as I said, don't try to be a perfectionist. It's okay to fail.
So I think I'm overly sensitive when I see the news that we don't understand at grassroots level. You have a lot of abuse happening, and with COVID and lockdown, and kids and women get abused, and women trying to protect the kids get abused as well. And why do they systematically accept it? It's because they don't have an alternative. It's their parents, the ecosystem says it's okay. That's the, oh, we think kamanna, I think what varadine. So you have to take this on, right? And they don't have an alternate for financial stability. So we need to solve this and then give them some courage to be independent. It's okay to be dependent, but you also have to be independent when you want to.
Yeah, so in addition to what they've said, for me, I'll tell you how I handle whenever I have an issue. I'm a very spiritual person. I think as I've grown older, I've tried spirituality has come in, and so I trust in the God I believe in, and I lay everything at His feet, and fortunately He's been giving me solutions. So I think it's good for people to, whatever God they believe in, to trust a little bit and have faith and meditate, and all of that will help you to come to a calming situation.
Thank you very much for this very inspiring conversation. I think after this all-woman panel discussion, the chat, as I invited you all to, I think we can confidently say, yes, Sri Lanka is at crossroads, and it's now. We make our decisions now, and we remain resilient to move forward. Thank you for watching us on the first episode for 2022. I'll see you again next week at the same time at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24.